Hello, and welcome to the Fluid Voice. I am one of your gracious co-hosts, Ozma in the Dark, here with Christy Abbey. How are you doing?
All right. Okay.
Yeah,
Go with okay.
and unfortunately, we couldn't manage to get um, Perfict for this pre-record, but we do have our returning guest, Lapis. How are you today, Lapis?
Oh, I'm doing swell, Ozma.
That's good. Everyone should be doing swell. Um, and today we're talking about social pressure. My brain is just so much stuff so last minute that I suddenly went
Ozma,
stage fright.
get it together.
It's okay, sweetie.
It's the total like, oh, I forget all my lines move. No,
Christy, I really think that we need to use a little bit of social pressure on Ozma right here and now.
Let's get it together. What is,
Yes, we are talking about social pressure as our topic, especially given so much of it in society. And so much. People are making a bigger deal. I feel like people are making a bigger deal about some aspects of social pressure, and others are not being made as big of a deal as should be made. But yeah, so there's a whole thing that J.K. Rowling signed up on that was about trying to stop cancel culture, because what was it, like lower book sales?
Yeah, and she feels like, oh, some of my former colleagues have criticized my comments.
And oh gosh.
Yeah.
And, in this time of Black Lives Matter, we still worry that we shouldn't go too far. We still need to have open dialogue, and we worry that in this social moment that open dialogue will no longer be permitted. And actually, J.K. Rowling wasn't the worst person to sign on to that. Probably the most embarrassing person to sign on to that was Noam Chomsky.
Yeah. Oh. Who's his own writing on social pressure and the uses of it from before are one of the things that spur on the things like protest and social change. So his writings in the 60s on the advantage of social pressure and social change is one of the things that we still use, even though we don't know it.
Well, I think the issue with Noam Chomsky in this regard is that he is part of the issue with his philosophy is that he can be very influenced by classical liberalism in the actual sense, as in classical liberalism that understood, okay, well, these are the forces that are being unleashed by capitalism, and are they necessarily a good thing? No, not really. But we still need to fight for broadly freedom from the state and state control. And one of the things that this manifests in is Chomsky's attitudes towards free speech. Now, you can kind of understand his background, writing from the 60s. The people who were getting shut down and quote unquote deplatformed were anti-war activists, and universities and students were fighting for the ability to speak their mind on social justice issues on campus. But now the conversation has shifted to, well, is it really advisable that we let Nazis and Holocaust deniers have platforms in the halls of academia? And Chomsky's response has been very much still stuck in this old form of thinking. Everyone should have the right to say whatever they want without, being shut down. And if you don't believe in free speech for the people you hate the most, you don't believe in it at all. What do you make of this idea?
I mean, I just so I think part of a lot of the problems is that you can have similar things, deplatforming and all that stuff, with wildly different reasons behind it. So a lot of people were against the war. It wasn't
Yes.
just like a small number wanting to say hateful things and to incite hateful actions. It was a lot of people trying to speak out for peace, being shut down by um, smaller groups. And now it's lots of people who don't want to support hatred, just not supporting it. That's not so
Hmm.
much, or that's how I feel about the situation.
Well, the trick is you can't under absolute free speech. You can do it, but then cancel culture, quote unquote, is a form of free speech. It's a form
Hmm.
of saying no to somebody who is trying to say yes to the destruction of whatever. Um, you know, absolute free speech, it has the power dynamics is behind that. It's who has the power to speak. J.K. Rowling has the power to speak. Noam fucking Chomsky has the power to speak.
Yeah, he's
Uh,
the most cited intellectual in history.
yeah. I understand why Salman Rushdie signed it, because his ability to speak was severely canceled, and that's real cancel culture. I don't think J.K. Rowling is being guarded 24/7 in her castle, or she may be.
So, two things there. Ozma's point that, now correct me if I'm misinterpreting this, Ozma, you seem to think that, well, in the 60s, the majority of people were speaking out for peace. So it makes sense that academia accommodate that majority outlook, right?
Um, yeah. Although, I mean, I'm now immediately stepping back because I'm not sure if it was actually the majority. It's
Yeah, I was going to say both times I actually think that one, nowadays, instead of how you were framing it, that the majority is against hate and, for, better values than that, I would actually be a bit more cynical than that. And I would say that the majority are for hate, as long as it doesn't look necessarily like Richard Spencer, as long as it's not so out in the open. But as long as hate is phrased in terms like law and order, oh, we need to keep a cap on inner city crime, I think the majority of people you can find will happily go along with it. Otherwise, Donald Trump never could have happened. Now, it's true that
yeah.
Donald Trump did not win the majority of the popular vote,
Yeah.
but, the actions of centrist Democrats and Republicans have guided America to the place where he became conceivable.
I would argue it became inevitable.
Yes. And the other thing, I don't think that the majority of the people in the 1960s were anti-war, at least not until the early 70s. And even then, I think that there was a pretty solid majority of Americans, at least until after 1972, were somewhat supportive of being in Vietnam. They just thought, you know what, this seems like a bit of a quagmire. Let's kind of slowly extract ourselves. They didn't necessarily understand it as imperialist aggression or awful. They saw it as a problem because, oh, my cousin died in the Vietnam War. I think it's kind of pointless. It's a waste of money, as opposed to that they actually understood why it was really bad. And so if it was being criticized, it was being criticized from the argument that this is not effective imperialism,
Yeah.
at least in the mainstream outlets.
Well, both Nixon and Humphrey ran against the war.
Yes, to an extent. Like, Humphrey also had that weird bit where he's like, oh, well, we shouldn't criticize, the acting president, that would be bad. I mean, that's why he got so much pushback from anti-war activists. And Nixon's whole thing was, oh, yeah, we need an honorable peace. And then still in 1972, he's like, well, we're still not ready for an honorable peace yet, but give me a little bit more time. So it was a pretty cynical kind of argument. And I think that most people deep down were willing to, take more time if it meant that America got to look tough.
Well, yeah, that is always the problem, isn't it?
I can't disagree with you. That's the problem. I don't like this. No, no, you make good points. Honestly, it comes down to then who should have the social pressure and why.
Well, I think that we should understand social pressure in terms of class struggle,
Of course.
And that I see social pressure and deplatforming as neutral things. They're not inherently good or inherently bad. There are people who can be unfairly deplatformed, and there can be people who are fairly deplatformed. There can be people who are unfairly pressured by society and people who are fairly pressured. And I think that the compass to decide which is right and which is wrong rests in, do these things serve class struggle? Do they serve the goals of advancing the interests of the oppressed? If they do, then it's fine. If they don't, then it isn't.
Well, you have a split in who is you have a split in hierarchies now in who is most able to get their message out,
Mm-hmm.
and who is in charge of the means of not only production but the means of policing. So I guess it's a triple split, which sounds lovely on a day like this. So you have the people, and Noam Chomsky, I don't think, and I'm gonna go back to Noam Chomsky. I don't think Noam Chomsky realizes that he is in the upper class in the information society, and he is on the top of the hierarchy in the information class.
Sorry, what exactly is the information class?
Us. The
intellectual influencers.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Milo and is used to be one of them, and
thankfully no longer. And I think that can be an example of a successful deplatforming that served the interests of the oppressed.
Yeah, but that was but the I mean, you still have at least there are certain people like say both Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert who understand that is their position and try to use it for good, but and Trevor Noah at this point.
Stephen Colbert is a little bit closer to centrist.
Not really, but he's very radical left.
Really? Now that's an interesting thing I haven't heard before.
Yeah, because usually, at the very least, the Colbert, not his making fun of conservatives show, his regular show seemed to be very it seemed to be focused on the Democratic Party in the more stereotypical ways.
Okay.
Yes, and remember how how I say I'm always much further to the left than I come across. This is the same. not that I'm on any kind of level with Stephen Colbert, but this is the same thing. It's like
Well, what?
I take a slightly more centrist view. I take a slightly more centrist way of speaking because that's that is the way to gradually draw people into my hierarchy of total leftism. And
I just I honestly don't know where you get that impression from. But to be fair, I also haven't watched um too much of I don't remember the show that Colbert ended up on.
Yeah, I haven't much knowledge of Stephen Colbert. I hear him lumped in on Twitter with people like Trevor Noah, and they're like, oh, and they seem rather dismissive of him. I've seen bits of Trevor Noah's show, and some of them have been good, some have been bad, rather hit and miss content, honestly. But I do appreciate the point you're making, Christy, about how it can be sometimes interesting or important to frame things that are appealing to, centrist norms and centrist ways of looking at the world in an effort to radicalize them. I don't think I'm very good at that, but
yeah, no, that's definitely a point that's been talked about at the very least. I don't think it's been talked about in this show though. Has it? I don't remember what I say. We've only been doing this show for 6 months. I'm already like forgetting everything.
I've talked about it here and there, but most people haven't seen much evidence of it. Although on my own show, I talk about it a little bit more radically than I do. It's just the way it spins out. I've had far leftists actually unfriend me because they don't think I'm left enough, and I'm like, bitch, I've been beaten up before you were born.
Well, there isn't necessarily a respect for that nowadays. Unfortunately, they don't necessarily. I don't think that is something that people value a lot on some of the spaces I've been in. Past experience, past trauma, past hurt. It's more about, well, what are you doing right now? Are you marketing yourself in a way I like? And I think this is very much the fault of the supermarket of ideology. I think it's okay. Not only do you have to proclaim yourself to be a certain thing, but show me that you are that thing with your aesthetic presentation. It's leftism turned into like a subculture.
It's leftism turned into a fashion show at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And that bothers me a bit because we all have slightly different leftisms in the left and all the way towards the center, and to cut a whole swath of people out is demeaning. I mean, I don't really know how to put it better than that particular word. Then like struggling for that word for a minute, and like, yeah, that's pretty much it. You need the swath, and not everybody's going to be over here. Everybody starts from a place, and if you want to take leftism to the place where you're trying to get it, then approaching people where they are is a lot more effective.
What do you think, Ozma?
I mean, so there are a couple different things that I think. So first off, I think that I think there needs to be some amount of working together because you're not going to get everyone to agree on everything. But that being said, you shouldn't do it by sacrificing your values, because
Never.
that would, yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if a bunch of people are
Bless you,
working
Christy.
against Nazis or whatnot, if, let's say, a bunch of people wanted to tear down the statue in Canada, the Nazi memorial statue in Canada,
Yeah, I'm for that.
yeah, but like lots of people would be for that. Like, you shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
worry too much about if they're far enough left or whatever to
Yeah.
to do that. And yeah, I mean, so long as you don't sacrifice your values to do that, because obviously that defeats the point. And if you're not, you have to, to some degree, I think you have to make it clear what some of your values are.
I I don't know. I volunteered to drag down the Columbus statue we have near downtown. I was all for that. Unfortunately, I said the quiet part out loud, and everybody was like, "Shh, you're not supposed to say that." No, well, okay.
What did you say?
I just said I said I will volunteer my estrogen weakened arms to tear it down, Columbus, any day. And it's like, no, you're not supposed to say that out loud. It's like, okay. Hmm. I mean,
Did they take issue with the estrogen weakened part, or that you were tearing it down yourself instead of waiting for the state to graciously hire someone to remove it?
no, I was saying that we should do that. I was volunteering to do this when everybody else was just couching it in euphemism.
Well, let's have a conversation
And,
about getting rid of it.
yeah, and the intention was to go down and get rid of it. And I, again, what? Okay. Before the show, I was talking about being guileless and the fact that I don't really hide anything. I can code switch a bit to semi-centrist, but it's not me being outside of my values or what I think. And that's some of the quiet parts I don't say out loud.
Yeah. And I think in that to bring it back, that is a negative aspect of social pressure, is hegemony, cultural hegemony, which overwhelmingly leans towards the center.
Yeah.
And in order to get the attention of a lot of people, on one hand, you have to play this very tight balancing act of, on one hand, speaking in such a way that it appeals to the principles and values that are taught to us by the hegemony we live in, and on one hand, not watering down your message so much that it just becomes another centrist platitude that achieves nothing.
Yeah, I don't do that. When it comes down to if somebody asks me, or I have to comment on something where there is that choice, I will come down on the side of obviously what I believe, and startle people at times.
Yeah, that's it's definitely an interesting aspect of social pressure, because people seem to be going in two directions oftentimes at the same time, where it's like, oh, we want free speech, and then the moment you say something that they disagree with, oh, that's really improper for you to say the thing
So
that I disagree with.
uncivil.
Yeah,
that's the one.
Exactly.
I really do think that people need to take a look and think think about, people tend to have a lot of scorn about the idea of political correctness, mostly because it's, a loaded negative word. But what I really think is that society should have the scorn for the term civility that it does for political correctness. Because in many ways, civility functions as centrism's political correctness, as no, we can't discuss these things too loud. No, minorities don't speak up like this. Say it properly. Say it nicely. Don't challenge me. Don't scare me.
Well, even the code switching is, when I say code switching, that's a form of it. It's, I have to code switch being Asperger's anyway, so other people can understand what the hell I'm saying. Otherwise, I just go on long rants of babble. But it's also, if there are times if you're not willing to actually say it out loud, say the quiet parts out loud, then the quiet parts have power over you.
Yeah.
And that's not good.
Yeah, and it also, yeah, no, I thought I had something in my brain in terms of civility and the class structure of building yourself towards the sort of faux nobility or whatnot, because people care more about who was born rich versus who actually worked towards being rich, because people can tell a lot of times.
Yeah, although I think it's worth noting that riches usually just come from the exploitation of others.
Oh yeah, no. I'm not trying to disagree with that. And most people who became rich were born rich, and they just became richer.
Yeah.
Right, I was born rich. Well, you know that. So.
And now I know that.
Yeah.
I'm not now. For a myriad of reasons.
Downward mobility.
Yeah. Although I made my own money for a while, but I think one of the reasons for learning a certain amount of centrist code switching, which is I was raised by someone who was far right and someone who was far left.
That must have made for quite a difficult childhood, because the lessons you were told from one parent would have been extremely disapproved of by the other.
Yeah, although strangely enough, the far right person was okay with me being trans and the far left was not. So
it's a bit interesting how I think it was probably even more true back then, but there was definitely a lot of resistance to trans people on radical spaces to begin with, because they saw it as, the male invader, the transsexual empire.
Oh, don't!
the
not the fucking transsexual empire book. Sorry, I have read bits of that.
I've read the whole thing. Yeah.
I have not. I definitely have read the part where I read a few pages of it, and also skimmed to the part where it was talking about making sure people stop transitioning, essentially.
Well, it's a very cynical book, and where it's like, well, women cannot really find liberation because, with trans women coming in, they're just losing their value in patriarchy to men. And that is why, in order to preserve the value of womanhood, we have to make sure that trans people don't transition. And that, to me, is a rather conservative mindset. We should just try to preserve the status of woman as is and never try to grow beyond the role that patriarchy has set out for us.
Well, yeah, it's also very much the so I like to use that book as uh, that book is to gender critical people or whatever gender critical people. What the
Gender critters.
yeah gender critters.
That's what I call them.
Damn those critters.
Yeah.
Uh, and then that book is to them kind of what the uh I'm forgetting the name of it. The something about the elders of Zion. The Russian
The protocols of the elders of Zion.
yeah, protocols of the
Yes.
elders of Zion. Thank you. Yeah, what that is to Nazis is what the rise of the transsexual empire is to gender critical people. In that, not everyone has read that book, but there are bits of it that seem to just be seeped into every little bit of the way they talk about gender critical talks about, or anyone who views that talks about that shit.
It's another form of social pressure.
Yeah.
I'm openly trans on Twitter, which
Mm-hmm.
and my inbox on the daily has people who are just coming at me for the mere sake of being, you know.
Your email?
No,
Just
DMs.
my notifications. Yeah,
Oh, DMs are notifications.
I have my DMs open because a lot of people come to me for help. So
It's worth the few assholes.
yeah, but I have it to I have to clear everybody first. So.
Yeah, I think everyone technically has that the clear thing, or at the very least, I have the clear thing too. I definitely know that, and I don't remember setting anything up for that. So I assume it is. Although I don't. I still don't know why I don't get more assholes. Like, I don't
Maybe it's
know.
because you pass so well.
That might be a factor. Another factor might be the fact that I do I argue with them and I don't stop until they block me. So
yes, I don't block anybody, but I will.
Oh no,
I will go at it with you until you block me.
Well, the thing is,
there's a difference between the two of us because I actually do block and mute people, especially muting.
There are people I don't mute much. There are people I block, which is people I'm pretty sure or definitely sure are abusers and rapists and people that I think are active dangers to forming a community. Those people I block because I feel like I cause more harm than good if I even let those people in. But I try to be a bit cautious in terms of blocking, especially because I mean, there's also obviously with abusers, I don't want to block the wrong person because there are people who claim victimhood or whatnot is not a completely uncommon thing when two people are upset, and usually two people are upset at each other or whatnot, where one is actually abusing the other, and usually one person has receipts, and that usually tells a lot.
Doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
I generally only block people if they like repeatedly harass me, and they do it to an extent that muting isn't providing me some sort of peace of mind. If it's just a right winger following my account and they're not interested in making a productive contribution, then I mute them, but I still let them follow me and everything and make their asinine little comments, because I just see it as a great way of boosting my own engagements.
Yeah.
It is funny how much because it is funny how much people are willing to engage, and everybody should engage on their own level, because it's not. I'm not. I'm not saying it like I'm some kind of trans warrior out there slaying the gender critter monster. I'm just. I it's if nothing else, the far right guy who is part of my raising, he liked to argue, and he would make me defend anything I said. And I was far left from an early, so I learned that as a skill, and I think I think I use it fairly well.
I don't know. I am also I mostly do it for visibility, and although if I'm upset enough, I do jump into things. But like in terms of having a conversation, being there, because even if it's a low probability, if I can, I mean, some people I argue with for fun, but some I think there's actually a chance I can change their mind.
And
yeah.
well, we've both done that.
Well,
and the show has done that, which was wonderful.
Yeah, with the worst guest ever.
And like, here's the thing. I don't completely fall into the whole idea that like, there's no point in trying to change people's minds. Everyone just has the same opinions that they have, and there's nothing you can do. I do make
terrible.
my goal is more to mobilize and radicalize people who might already be kind of neutral, as opposed to like, trying to quote unquote de-radicalize the fascists. That to me is not really my main aim with my Twitter account or my YouTube channel.
Yeah. And that's totally fine. That works, because people, not everyone wants to do stuff, and that's not really the goal for the fluid voice in that manner. Now, I might personally want to change people's minds, and I do potentially plan on doing more, but there are some people I don't think. There's some people that's more difficult to deal with, and there's some people that, the fluid voice is just not a good. It's not what I don't feel comfortable. The fluid voice as a platform for anything outside of visibility and just talking with people and showing that we exist, because that makes a difference too.
Yes. I feel like a lot of hatred it's not always based around ignorance, but it is generally based on this kind of formless other that is not really personable or human, and that just feels the same way all the time. And I think it is a very useful thing to do, to draw trans people out of that formless other and help confront people with the idea that no, we are real human beings with thoughts and feelings and nuances and weaknesses and strengths, and that it can be very useful to to people who are just kind of used to seeing trans people as this formless monster that consumes everything.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, do you want to? I mean, real people. I'm very sad. Right, I'm very sad this last couple weeks because of personal things, but and that's a thing that people go through, and I'm a people. It's a funny thing that way. Uh,
Yeah.
uh,
No. Have.
the
Oh,
I, I
go on.
I agree with I agree, by the way, with the visibility and somewhat talking. I mean, we talk about our actual personhood on here a fair amount, which I'm okay with. Um,
Yeah.
I've had arguments with other trans people as to how much how much you should personalize any of this, and to me, it's all personal. So, uh, social pressure is kind of where what I fight against, and somebody coming in and just saying, well, you're mentally ill. It's like, well, no, that's you trying to change who I am. That's not a real thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, we can get into the. I mean, a lot of mental illnesses. I mean, that is also a social pressure in the sense that it's because society was created that the way that it is. ADD or being on the autism spectrum, these are disadvantages for the society, and it makes it more difficult to live in this particular society the way it's structured. But that doesn't. But that's all because people, uh, enough people got in power and agreed on that. Like, if society is only slightly different, what would be considered abled or disabled would be like totally different.
Hmm. Um, I had something of a controversial opinion on like neurodivergence. I think that everyone has a little bit of that sort of, mental illness. Everyone has a little bit of, you know, thinking or part of their brain that is not typical. And so the idea of the neurotypical doesn't really exist. Um, Many people perceive themselves to be normal, sane, but they're not really. They just haven't discovered that aspect about themselves yet.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
I actually agree with that. That's not as controversial as you'd think.
yeah, well, I
At
mean, I think
least.
that's part of the reason why less and less stuff is so what's considered insane or crazy or whatever. Less and less is fits into that category. The more time goes on because people are like um, realizing that neurodivergence is not inherently a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Although that is still something that so much of society needs to work on. There's still so much shame in not being, at the very least, the view of what's neurotypical that society brings upon us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in its own social pressure, I I didn't talk about the what they used to call Asperger's section of ASD um, until long after I came out trans, because I felt more pressure not to be that,
Hmm.
and I could code switch enough where it's not always noticeable, but
Yeah.
sometimes it really is. I managed to keep my girlfriend from knowing about it for 2 years.
Hmm.
Uh, because I'd go out for a smoke whenever I'd have to, yeah, sure. Now I'm doing things when I'd have to, when I'd get into that state.
Okay.
and she finally saw me shopping. Maybe that's what broke us up. She saw me shopping. She saw me in a grocery store, which is not a pleasant sight.
That's usually how relationships start in movies. Like, how is that? How things end? No, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of pressure to. There are a lot of expectations, like looking people in the eye. There's a lot of social pressure to look at the other person in the eye and what they mean by looking him in the eye, which is actually swapping between looking at their eye and mouth or whatever. Oh fuck! There's like a whole eye twitch thing, or eye. There was a study on this. There was a study in what most people do when they look at each other.
Yeah, when somebody looks at me, my natural instinct is to avoid eye contact.
Yeah. Same.
Which I think gives people the idea that I'm shifty and untrustworthy, and that's not entirely wrong, but still, the judgment hurts.
But I had to ask the personal question. Then, are you on what would be considered the neurodivergent spectrum?
Well, it's complicated. I haven't had. The last time I had somebody look at it, they listed me as a category that is technically on the autism spectrum, but is a controversial category. And has been under a lot of debate by psychologists. And since that happened, I haven't really moved forward into looking at it anymore.
Gotcha.
It was actually two people who were guests on here who one person was a guest and Ozma talking about it the one day, and I really just wanted to say me too, and I didn't because I felt embarrassed. And then I got retested and was like, oh, same score.
Well, I mean, a lot of that also comes from the fact that goes into a completely different topic, actually, because that's even more than social pressures. Well, I mean, I guess there's social pressure and the need to be right all the time, the need to be correct. I feel like there's a lot of social pressure that you have to get things absolutely right.
Yeah,
well, I think in general, if neurodivergent is seen, it is seen as 1, comical, 2, uncomfortable, and 3, as a burden for other people.
Yeah.
Which is why I learned to code switch. Because that's what you did.
And I think that kind of normalizing the idea that everyone has some form of neurodivergence, everyone has some form of tic, everyone does something that at sometimes, hey, maybe it makes other people uncomfortable. I think it normalizes the idea that we shouldn't try to normalize, we shouldn't try to put everyone else's comfort and approval above the things that make us individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, admittedly, to do that, we may have to go about taking down the power of capitalism.
Oh, sure. But that's, how are you going to change anything while that old bitch is still around?
I mean, yeah. Like, everything about how jobs are structured to get people to work as much as possible and to produce as much as possible, and that just...
Yes, I think there is something very accurate about how workplace dynamics put people on edge, and they also make them less understanding or sympathetic than they otherwise would have been to the difficulties of their more neurodivergent colleagues.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't need to work for a long time, but when I did, need money, I would go out. I would take temp jobs, and I would only take really the ones where they just put me in the corner and leave me alone. It was kind of, and I do the job. I mean, I just didn't want to be bothered with other people, which is not misanthropic of me because I love being around other people. I just don't want anybody telling me what to do other than here, this needs done, and I'll go do it.
Not, oh, are you doing this right? Are you doing that right? Remember to do this and that. Reminders can be such an annoyance.
Yeah, pretty much. The other than that, yeah, I didn't like. This. And I tell a stupid story because we're on this subject, and I never told this story before. I got into a car accident right out. I was working at a temp place where I was being phased into permanent because I liked doing it, and they left me alone because I did the job just fine.
Yeah.
And I got into a car accident outside of the just outside of the job, as in across the street.
Oh, okay.
I was hit by a car. I was hit by a car pretty massively. It wrecked my car. But I walked across the street instead of waiting for the thing. I just walked across the street and went to work, and didn't tell them that I was in a car accident until I passed out because I'd really hit my head badly. And when I woke up, I was crying because I was like, but they're gonna fire me, which is really the frightening part under capitalism. That's where I gave up on capitalism, was when they said, oh, of course we're not going to fire you, this is not anything, you have to go to the hospital. And they fired me on Monday.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Over the phone.
Yep. No.
In many ways, capitalism is like a bad boyfriend.
And then one of those in a while.
I've never. I'm not that into men, so like.
You haven't exposed yourself to the male energy.
Not when it comes to anything. When it comes to relationships, I'm really complicated, because like, I don't know where I am on the romantic and when it comes to asexuality spectrum. I'm somewhere on there. I've been in like, sex is questionably important to me at all, but like male secondary sexual characteristics are like super gross when it comes to sexual stuff. I'm like, do not want. And since a lot of people care about sexual stuff in relationships, that doesn't
You felt like that's been a barrier to you in pursuing relationships?
No, it hasn't really been a barrier because I don't really have any strong ties to monogamy, so that's one of those things that works. It makes it easier to part of it is because I have questionable interest in sex at all, and so it makes it less of a burden for that sort of thing, because I don't care if I have a partner who gets to have lots of fun. That's good. She should have lots of fun. I'm here for the cuddles. That's what I'm here for. That's the most important thing.
You find the sexuality aspect to be uncomfortable?
I'm not. No, it's just I'm not interested mostly.
Mostly.
Yeah, so it's
Oh, here I am doing my horrible prying thing again. It's none of my business.
well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I will just blurt shit like this out because I don't actually care if lots of people know. I mean, I wouldn't be doing this if I worried too much about like that sort of thing.
I just feel like sometimes, I don't know, I'm trying to like center the comfort of both of you. So
Oh,
I think I don't have a filter, and I know Ozma actually doesn't.
this is true. I
so any direct question to either of us is probably going to be met with an answer.
yeah, and if there's something that I don't want to talk about, I will flat out say I don't want to talk about it.
I don't know. I just sometimes I worry that like, oh no, I shouldn't pry even if people are willing to talk about it because they might be uncomfortable talking about it or what have you.
Oh no, it's just one of those things where it's like, to some degree, I am still figuring out every aspect of it when it comes to sexual attraction. Like I said, I know I'm somewhere on the asexuality spectrum. Exactly where I am not entirely sure because sometimes it's like somewhere in the gray and or demisexuality sort of thing. But yeah, no, it really yeah, but polyamory definitely takes pressure off me worrying about that.
Yeah, no problem. My tiara. Yeah, I'm so boringly monogamous and binary. Which
binary.
It's okay. Like one of the people because like here's the thing. I'm also a very curious person, so I want to try to just randomly ask people out if I like them as people, and then just see where we go in terms of barriers. But like I'll be open and honest about it. I definitely got rejected by someone because they're monogamous and I am not, but that's fine too because friendship is like the biggest thing.
Friendship.
Have you ever felt pressured into monogamy?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, you are monogamous, so.
Yeah, but I should put it into the other. I was pressured into polyamory, which I was not happy with.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I've noticed that it really can be that with certain partners, they will put their own sexual preference over necessarily their other half's needs. And that can manifest in terms of polyamory or monogamy or what have you.
Yeah. No, I can totally see that. And like, yeah, that, I never understood that sort of thing. Although, yeah, I definitely felt pressure towards monogamy, the societal pressure when it came to my first relationship, who is the ex I'm roommates with. I have two people I'm roommates with.
Yeah.
The guy is not the ex. The because I still, yeah, the my sexuality hasn't like actually changed much. But anyway, she like all but asked me out. And we started a relationship, and I kind of went with it because that seems to be my personality with relationships. But yeah, I definitely felt that pressure because I was definitely always open to her being with other people. Like, I don't care if I'm monogamous and she doesn't have to be or whatever, was kind of my attitude because I'm mostly in it for the cuddles anyways. And if she can get more from being with more people, then I would prefer what makes her happy. But to be fair, she's also more happy with monogamy anyway, so like it's not
Uh, sorry.
yeah.
Well, just on the subject, since neither of them watched the show,
Uh-oh.
The person who is now my ex's fiance was brought in to be a third person in our relationship, and I felt at the time I could live with that because I'd slept with him before she had. Because I'd known him longer than I'd known her. And but it ultimately wound up breaking us up because I didn't want that.
Yeah.
And I think like the common element here is, as I said earlier, it's that, you know, people are putting their own needs over others. Now, I think that it's probably more people probably have your experience, Ozma, of being pressured into monogamy, you know, polygamous relationships are not recognized by the state. Only marriage is, and only marriage can give you benefits. So that in and of itself is a form of pressure. It's a little nudge to, this is the form of relationship that works best. Do it this way, and we'll give you a tax break.
What? Well, this is true. I've been curious because I've asked a couple of people and no one's had an answer. Why is polygamy so prevalent in the trans community?
I would say I can give answers that may not be definite answers, but are thoughts I've had about it.
Okay.
I also have
one
thoughts, but go on.
You okay? Would you like to go first, Ozma?
No. You went first. I want you to go first. I just meant I have thoughts too. I
have no thoughts on this.
I wanted to go after you. Sorry, I blurted things out in my mind. Please go.
Okay. So one thing I think might be why polygamy is prevalent among the trans community is a lot of trans people have experienced, you know, or at least seen a socially approved monogamous straight relationship, and it hasn't worked for them. And in some respect, being a trans person is a rebellion against the kind of, you know, the cis-het married couple in the white picket fence already. So for many trans people, I think the thought is, why not just go all the way? Why not just, you know, completely go against that? Why not just pursue happiness wherever I can find it, as opposed to still trying to conform to this ideal that is set down by the state and society?
That's been pretty close to my thought, but
that's also been pretty close to my thoughts as well.
As much social pressure, and I'm gonna just keep using the word for in different contexts here. Much social pressure is there is not to be trans. I find being trans very freeing. In a strange way.
I concur. I think that there's a lot of, in being cis, there's a lot of things that you have to force yourself to be, and it can be so cloying. Um, all of these strict expectations and do's and do nots, and it feels very artificial. Whereas when I came out as trans, I found it to be a very freeing thing. I wasn't, just trying to conform to society's idea of woman. I was being my own woman. Because I already knew that I'd never be able to perfectly match. So I'm like, oh, you know what? I'll just be what I want to be. I will be my own woman.
Yeah. I was gonna say that also, for whatever reason, made me think of the part in the book 1984 when he sneaks away with that one woman to the poorer part of town, because there's the whole class thing, and it's like, and just the freeing nature of just being totally fucked by society.
Yeah. Well, going against social norms, I went. My actual coming out was on stage, so.
So was mine.
Was it?
Yes, I did it in front of my high school.
How?
Oh, okay. I did it in front. I did it at a concert, show, multi-person show. My makeup was terrible.
I think mine was too. It's kind of a rush job. I didn't know what I was doing, but
it took forever for me to know what I was doing with makeup, and I didn't even want to wear makeup in the first place. I just wanted to get rid of the facial hair. That's much easier for me.
Well, yeah, you at least have seen a picture of what I used to look like.
I honestly forget, and I honestly don't care. I like how you look now.
Yeah.
Me too. That means a lot to me, believe it or not.
Believe it or not, I'm walking.
Yeah,
on air. Could be so free.
There we go.
Flying away on a wing or a prayer. Who could it be? Believe it or not, it's just me.
But yeah, this is the point where technically it's totally fine to go off topic because we passed the 1 hour mark.
We did go on off topic, and I do want to go back to.
Yeah, no, we oftentimes go off topic and then go back to topic anyways.
In a very thin and transparent way to anyone viewing this in the future. They will be able to see how obviously and loosely we tried to tie social pressure into the random things we wanted to talk about at this moment.
Hey, you know what? That's okay.
It is okay. I think it is beautiful to go off topic and completely abandon plans.
You know what? That seems to happen sometimes on this show.
One of the things, because it was brought up, I think that I'm going to say something, and I'm going to have to qualify it afterwards, because otherwise people will go, "What the fuck?" I think that the snatching up of Antifa protests and putting protesters and putting them in putting the hoods on and putting them in vans with unmarked police people is nearly the perfect form of social pressure to keep people from protesting. And to qualify that, I don't think it's in any way moral. I think it's incredibly immoral, but as a piece of social pressure, it will probably work.
It is masterful to make people more afraid of unmarked vans and feds without badges and without bothering to give any sort of authority and give even the pretense of recognition of rights. That is, it's a masterful shifting of the conversation away from police brutality, especially racial injustice, because a lot of the people who've been picked up by the unmarked vans, it's just happening to protesters. And so now people will become so intimidated by this flagrant breach of power by the state that they'll be too worried to protest, too scared to worry about injustice. They'll just be worried about their lives.
Yeah, and I'm in a very liberal or liberal slash leftist area, and I'm terrified. And they picked a liberal slash leftist area to start in.
Yeah, which is the deliberate intimidation tactic of it. I will offer these words of encouragement, though. Historically, the worst acts of state repression have happened before some sort of revolution or massive change. It doesn't always work out in the state's favor. Bloody Sunday in 1905 was, in some respect, the catalyst for the collapse of the Tsarist regime. Let's see. That the church bombings that the KKK did and the insane police brutality in Birmingham, Alabama, was in some ways a catalyst for the civil rights movement in America. And I believe that, well, this is, not necessarily like a shocking case of I think there was also a incidence of firing upon the crowd just before the final overthrow of the monarchy in the French Revolution. Just before the king lost all of his power in France and became a figurehead for a few years and then got his head chopped off. So when the state tries these things, it's an indication that we really have them up against the wall and they're going to do anything to free themselves, anything to win.
Yeah.
England had a masterful way of, if I can use masterful in a different context, way of dealing with this, with the discontent of the returning veterans in World War II, and which happened in the U.S. as well, with the attempt to socialize medicine, but making a large part of England socialist against Churchill's wishes was, that was a revolution to stop a revolution.
Yeah, the state was pressured into social democracy. Now, it remains to be seen if the Democrats will have the wisdom to do something similar, if they somehow, if, then this is assuming they don't somehow manage to bungle the re-election attempt against Trump, which I really don't think will happen at this point. The coronavirus seems to have really done a number on his popularity, especially how it keeps going and isn't stopping. But you never know. But let's say the Democrats do manage to get into power. I worry that they will not, well, this is like, is it a worry or is it a good thing? The Democrats may not be clever enough to institute social democracy. They may just decide, oh, what we need is a return to normalcy. We shouldn't make any big changes. People just want things to go back to the way they were. They want, people like, what's the face? George W. Bush and all his cronies back. They want to return to normalcy where we all got along. I worry that they'll go down that road. I see things like giving John Kasich the floor at the Democratic National Convention as a signal that even more centrism, even more right wing will be the Democrats' strategy. And if it is their strategy, I really think that they will lose badly. And not just them, the entire system of property, both parties of property may not be able to survive the wave of unrest that will accompany an attempt to return to normal.
Well, I have my thoughts on this would take up a couple of hours in itself, and I think that because of the national situation as it is, there is no possible way to not institute a form of socialism. I don't think. Well, obviously, one of the things Joe Biden is saying is that coronavirus should not be. It should be a national, paid for through national funds, and we should nationalize the hospitals for the at least the duration of that. But I don't think once they do that, it can go back.
Mm. It's a question of, will they actually have the courage to do it, or will the urge to normalcy, will the ideological desire just to go back to the way things were and have no contention, will that prove stronger than the necessity of stopping a pandemic?
Yeah, and the thing about that is that's going to get harder and harder the more the pandemic goes on, because a lot of people talk about the deaths, but that's only one part of it. There are there's permanent damage that occurs to people
who catch the virus.
Yeah, there's a chance of permanent damage that occurring to people. So, like, the more people who are alive who suffered from this, the harder it is going to be to return things to normalcy. Because yeah, go on.
Normalcy is not a thing that's going to happen. We don't have normal is gone.
I hope so, because normal was bad, and I worry that the people, won't get that. The Democratic Party won't get that people don't like normal.
Yeah, but I do feel thankful that mine was very mild. Four of us here got it, and the fifth person here did not. Which, I mean, they probably are a carrier, but yeah. So four of us got it, and everybody survived it. My ex-wife a little less than the rest of us. But mine was very mild, which is funny because I'm usually the one in the hospital every year.
It's all the estradiol. It's secretly keeping you from. It's secretly lessening the symptoms. No, actually, I'm pretty sure that's false. In terms of efficacy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, false narrative, but I do wonder. It's like,
Well, I mean, to some degree, it's always random chance when it comes to viruses.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I have my hospitalization for pneumonia every year, which I'm overdue for by several months. But when it first hit is about when I would normally be in the hospital for pneumonia for 5-6 days.
Wonder if the universe is trying to tell you something.
That being on hormones is good.
Yes.
I mean,
because it didn't happen last year either, which also weird.
Nice.
And just to get back to the unmarked vans of Portland.
Yeah.
I worry that people will not see this correctly. And I've seen two bad takes about the unmarked vans of Portland. One is a liberal one is a leftist one. The first bad take about the unmarked vans of Portland is, how is this America? I can't believe this is America. What about all of our freedom? Oh my goodness, this would be happening in some sort of authoritarian country, not in America. No, this sort of thing has happened before. Like, do people just forget that the National Guard was sent in to suppress the 92 Rodney King riots? Do people forget the rampant police brutality and military brutality that was used to fight in the civil rights era, and even in the era of queer liberation, against Stonewall, against all of these things, police brutality and rampant abuse of authority, they're as American as apple pie.
White cis het. I mean, now Kent State that's why Kent State was an awakening, because it was, white people getting killed.
Yeah, and that's why we're like, oh my goodness, the tragedy. How could this have happened in America? And I feel like this is a similar thing because Portland is a very gentrified city. People are like, oh my God, like, how could it happen in America? And the bad left wing take is, oh my goodness, this is just imperialism coming home to roost. You know, like, this is just the American state treating its own citizens like it treated the world. And my issue with that take is, but America has always treated Black people this way and worse. Like this, there's a certain weird idea that, oh, America always has reserved its worst atrocities for abroad, and that's not true. It's just kind of targeted people who wouldn't be listened to.
I think I find it odd in the protest era that we had, although it's still going on.
Yeah.
It's just less so. It's just less visible. That the galvanizing force was not only someone I know, but happened right in front of my city hall in Buffalo, where even though a lot of the protesters were attacked, including the trans group I belong to, the trans leftist group I belong to.
Yeah.
You know, the shot of one old man being knocked over was enough to galvanize a lot of people into that one thing. Is one of the things that plummeted Trump's ratings, and it's like Trump technically had nothing to do with it, but it was still
Didn't he try to pretend the old man was like was faking it or something?
Oh yeah, that he was and he's got permanent brain damage and he can't go back to work, which is upsetting to him.
Also, another massive self-own on the right there. All the entire, like, what was it? It was like the special forces of Boston, like their entire SWAT team, like resigned in protest because the city disciplined the guy who had assaulted the old man. Like, no, how dare you discipline this obvious maniac? No.
Yeah.
And the 57 people who resigned here, it's a tricky situation. They resigned from the special forces. They say they will not. The union says the way it played was that that they resigned because people got disciplined for it, but what they actually did is the union president here is a crazy person, and I don't use that word.
Union?
Yeah, I don't use that word often. But the actual people who resigned from that force, they're not resigned from the police force. Some of them are, but
personally, if I was in charge of the city of Boston, I'd just like fire them.
well, but here in Buffalo, I'm just the where the old man got knocked down. The actual, when interviewed, they all said, no, this is not what we signed up for. This is not the way we do things, and and the union finally said they're not going to be involved in any kind of special forces action any longer. That is not what police should be. So a lot of the way it was reported didn't really deal with the aftermath of it.
Yeah, from what I heard from the reporting, it was that the police were like, "Oh no, we're in solidarity with the guy who got disciplined because he assaulted the old man."
Yeah,
and they shouldn't have the right to do that, and that was the reason they had quit the special forces.
Yeah, I mean that's what the union said, and they were not telling the truth, because the union president is crazy and he's being kicked out at some point fairly soon.
Well, it's almost like a lot. If a place were to have a police force, the best thing to do is to fire most of the people and completely restructure how it's used and have it be used for significantly less. One might say one should abolish the police as they are now and create a different sort of police, one that isn't called for everything and is only called for actual bad things.
Yeah.
And doesn't go walking around policing everyone for everything they do. I realize now after I said it.
Well, this is what I get for being in a generally leftist city. I mean, when we had the Occupy movement here, well, they stayed through winter, which is okay. That's insane, but but nobody really harassed them. They just sort of eventually went away, which is different from a lot of other places where they were, forcibly removed. Just
like in New York City.
Yeah, they just sort of
And I
faded.
don't necessarily interpret that as New York City be inherently reactionary, and more that the NYPD suck.
Yeah, well, yes, they do.
Yeah, yeah. No.
I've had more problems with them than I have with the Buffalo Police, and I rarely go down to New York City. So.
Well, I mean, with a lot of that stuff, it's just police are given too much power and training only to kill people, and that's not really helpful.
They should be afraid to kill people. Like they should be afraid of losing their job.
They shouldn't be. They shouldn't be told that it's an orgasmic experience. I can't remember the police person who said that. Sort of.
It was Atlanta Baltimore or something. I know he got fired. So.
Yeah, wasn't it like a union leader? Or
yeah.
Yeah. Police unions.
The one
I think we may need to make an exception in union busting for them.
Yeah, pretty much. It was the guy.
The problem is the police are busy protecting the police unions and none of the other unions. So like,
well, it's yeah. The police are very much split up here. It's a little hard to pin any one thing on it. We have 4 different police in Buffalo, which is weird, but such it is.
what do you mean 4 different police?
We 4 different police. Because we have the 9 colleges in the city. We have a roaming campus police, which we have transit police, which
fuck transit police.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. We have the regular police and we have a special unit. So
okay, I was really confused because I was like, wait, if you just have 4 police officers, that just seems like a much in all of Buffalo.
Well, no, this is a bit of a return, but remember the letter that J.K. Rowling and a bunch of other people were signing? Yeah. And they specifically mentioned like, oh, in this time of, all of this police brutality, now it's more important than ever to watch out for like cancel culture, and we can't let ourselves become too intolerant of other ideas. Why do you think they specifically were trying to change the topic? Why did they bring up police brutality only to use it as, and this is why we need to support our beliefs, our opposition to, social pressure against us for some of the things we've said more than ever?
The people who wrote it were very anti-trans, because you can actually put any minority group in them before the period, and it would work on almost all of those the statements. which I have. If I had, I should have prepared a screenshot of that. Somebody did
Well,
it.
Barry
Well, I mean,
Weiss, for
we did
example,
not
is
prepare.
not just anti-trans, but also like I think anti-life. She was the one that said, "Call me a grandma killer, but I'm not going to stay inside."
No, that wasn't Barry Weiss. That was not Barbara Mandel.
Bethany Mendel.
Bethany Mandel. Barbara
But
Mandel.
they blend together. Barry Weiss was oh, what was she again? She was This is why we need to start befriending neo-Nazis.
Oh yeah, that was Barry Weiss. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shitty New York Times white woman seems to be something I can't really discern apart. They all seem to blend together for me.
It's yeah.
What,
I remember
what,
standing on a street corner a few years ago, just looking at the people pass by, and I said, "There's not one pretty woman here. It's just they're all done up too much. They're all tight ass and what's going on here?" That wasn't even. Well, I suppose I shouldn't have been standing where I was, but there you go.
well, I was gonna say that when you have everything melded so much towards the center, everything does start to look the same.
Yeah,
Homogenous blob.
Yeah.
that's what it was. It was this. Yeah, I am sorry. I thought I had a follow up, but I don't.
I mean,
if you give trans people anything, the way we have to deal with social pressure, which is not passing. I don't care that I pass most of the fair amount of the time. I don't usually. I usually have my hair done a lot better than this. I'm embarrassed by it, but speaking of social pressure, regardless of passing most of the time, I don't care if someone passes.
That's interesting.
I'm bringing around to both the leftism and stuff. I went into a socialist meeting, and I was going to meet my friend's wife for the first time, which was like a big deal to me because I like my friend and I was hoping to like her wife. And my first thought, and I was very new out, my first thought when I saw her was, she's not even trying. And then I said, okay, I'm part of the problem then. So.
Yeah, well, I think passing is actually a really interesting way of oftentimes how minority groups can be responsible for more social pressure than the majority. Sure, like cis people are more comfortable with trans people who pass, but I have noticed a dynamic where there are trans people that get really hung up on passing and kind of use it as a certain social currency in trans spaces about, oh yeah, obviously I'm doing better. Obviously I'm more put together than you. Obviously I'm living a more trans experience than you because I pass better.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, well, we have our hierarchies and the social pressure even in the trans thing. And again, I was part of the problem. Which was, I mean, I recognized it immediately, but especially if I'm going to be sitting down with a socialist / anarchist group, they would have hurt me if I had said it out loud.
As they should.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, I was much. I mean, part of the passing thing is just like the fear for safety.
Yes.
Because of the social pressure to make sure to get, like, even though I live in Minnesota, they technically, when it comes to the laws, they in like early 90s or whatever. Technically, it was the law that the same law that made it illegal to discriminate against people for being like gay, lesbian, bisexual, or whatever. Also, uh, made it illegal to discriminate against you if you're trans. That
Well,
being
that's good.
well, yeah, but that being said, when it comes to the level of enforcement of that law, it hasn't really been enforced much until recently. And also, because I know, like, a kid in high school, if I'd known about this law in high school, I would have probably, well, I don't know, because I was fucking scared as a teenager, just in general. And I was still pissed at them about this, but, like, I know, uh, uh, so in high school, the soccer team did a thing where the I don't know if it was just the captain of the soccer team or like the whole soccer team wore dresses or whatever if they won super far into the matches or whatever. There was like some weird thing that they started, and
Oh,
one of the soccer players got in trouble for wearing a dress in school because of the principal change.
why is what? Why would
Yeah.
that be a problem?
Uh, fuck, I don't remember. It's something dumb and annoying, and um, uh, I. It definitely didn't help in terms of um, expression, because that was definitely some more of the social pressure to uh, fit into how society wants to view you. But yeah, no, I didn't like deal with uh, when I first dealt with kind of sort of me being out is like a complicated process in terms of how much I've been out and how many people I've been out to. But when it comes to out to everybody, that didn't start until after I got hit by a car. And, but even then, when I was out, I had a lot more focus on passing than I did on having my own style. And I think that
Yeah.
really killed it for me. Obviously, that did not. I stopped that attitude because I was tired of just feeling trapped
Well,
in the passing thing.
all,
In
all I'm
trying
thinking,
to.
all I'm thinking about the soccer team is I'm hoping at least one of them discovered who they really are from that.
Yeah, from having to wear dresses.
No, the thing is, like, when it comes to people getting in trouble, it was always a random grab bag of who the teacher like the or was fine with or whatever, and or you didn't know if anything was going to get enforced, or and whether or not you get in trouble was like no guarantee, because I broke a lot of rules in terms of dress codes, but I got away with it. The kid who in psych class we were asked to wear something different, and one of the kids wore a dress to psych class, or a skirt to a psych class, which I was incredibly jealous of. No, uh, despite how closeted I was.
Hmm.
It's always funny when you're like closeted and then you look back and you're like, how did I not?
How
I
did
have
I not
memories.
know? It seems so obvious.
Yeah, like I was definitely jealous of that person. And I say that person because I don't know. I really don't. With the culture as it was, I legit don't know if what that person's gender is, if they how they identify now, and I'm just like
Yeah.
afraid of like calling them he or she.
Well, I'm still friends with my high school girlfriend, and she actually had to remind me that when I came out to her, because I came out to a lot of people before I came out publicly, and she was one of them for one reason, because you know, we remained close over the years, and she said, "Yes, I know. Do you remember what your favorite outfit was to wear at school?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, you know, leotard, black leather jeans over it, or black jeans over it, white shirt tied in the waist, kitten heels, of course, you know, and you know, once in a while fishnet stockings under." And she's like, "Okay, now, how do I know you're trans? You know, because I dress like that."
Well, I have always been rather lucky in that my sense of fashion has always been, I've never had to be like, yes, I must alter my sense of fashion to make it more femme passing. My sense of my taste has always been very feminine. So
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Everyone's
ever
got their own
since I
taste.
came out, you know, I haven't really had too many problems with being seen a different way unless it's with my family.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't with what I normally wear. It's just one of those things where I got so scared that I was afraid to do like anything. But like what very much I was used to the fear of what I had to dress before I was able to get on hormones, which was its own fucking way too long process. Cause like I'd been going
Just
to
for the record, I still have these,
Oh,
so and I have them right at my desk.
See, now I have to edit the video because I'm.
No,
pretty
you
sure...
don't.
Oh, I don't for that.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Well, why would you?
Because it's showing of the nipple. And
But there were no showing of female presenting nipples in that.
No.
Yeah.
Last time I put my thumb over it just to be safe, but no, I checked into that. That's
not. Oh,
okay.
That's good to know. I just it's one of those things where I don't want like fucking video of like
We've spent a lot of time talking about the negative aspects of social pressure. Can you think of positive aspects of social pressure?
Sure, it keeps it I'm going to use the word suppresses, but I want a better word here. It suppresses some bad ideas because they aren't socially acceptable anymore. I grew up in an era where the N-word was freaking common everywhere I went. I'm
annoying.
Yeah. And I mean, for the most part, that's just gone.
Yeah.
Outside of gamer circles.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
Gamer circles need to get their shit together.
Look, it depends on the gamer circle you're in. Shut up.
I know.
Shut up. Like, I raid in World of Warcraft Classic.
Oh no. Still playing that? It's from 2005.
Look, it's World of Warcraft Classic. I have a friend who raids. Like, I like some of the esports aspect to games, like the sporting aspect of actually trying to improve and get better and compete. Look, it's not... And, you know, we... our guild has kicked people if they... you know, sexually harass people, or if someone was dropping the N word, like, they would be kicked, definitely. And just, I mean, we there's anti-racial slurs in the thing, but I mean, that's Zavaris, one of the roommates, is he's one of the main officers of the guild, so he's like one of the more important people in the guild. And that factors in.
Yeah, let's just shout Leroy Jenkins and be done with it.
I'm fine with that.
Conformity is the ultimate of social pressure, and we don't conform, and I'm okay with that. I wanted to conform. I wanted to be just. I have a friend who transitioned in 2008, and that's when you went stealth and just you never talked about it, and I see how much harm that does her, even the social pressure to never talk about it to people. I mean, one of the things that it was, I absolutely know one of the reasons she was my friend was that I understood.
Were you more open at the time, or were you less open?
The last 6 months before I came out was more. I tried to be more macho, but this was a person I could let go with.
Macho man.
Yeah, I could let go with, and I didn't have to feel the need for dominance and all of that social crap,
the toxicity.
And I don't, and I never liked that anyway.
Well, that's good.
I'm not a dominant person. It's not part of my nature.
I get your sub.
Well,
we don't.
I don't want to answer that question. But...
Okay, that's fine.
But that's more along the lines of like negative aspects of social pressure, that people felt that they couldn't come forward about their real identities.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to see it that, a lot of these really racist types, they feel uncomfortable coming forward about their real identities to people in public. And I say, good. You shouldn't feel comfortable being racist.
And I do think one of the positive things is the amount that trans people can be out.
Yeah, like it was so much more difficult now, and more sites have been improving slowly, and it seems far too slowly. More and more areas have improved the ability to communicate. I know there's some some pushback, but like, I mean, Glitter got kicked off of Twitter. Like, Twitter kind of did like a major thing. Unfortunately, the most they've ever done to Trump's account is that one declaration on that one tweet.
This would violate our rules, but in the interest of like public knowledge, I think you should see it anyway.
Yeah.
Where he was like, when the looting starts, the shooting starts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like that definitely is social pressure, because that's not the sort of platform that people want to be on.
On a long conversation, somebody I knew, in fact, made a transphobic joke on Facebook, and when I criticized him, he apologized, which would not have been the case.
Shock.
Yeah.
No, it seriously wouldn't have been the case.
Ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I felt that a victory, because he's also the only person I ever blocked. It's just he kept calling me at 3 a.m, and I kind of got tired of it.
It does sound annoying.
Yeah.
But it's social pressure is a good or ill, and one of the things that I disliked about let's swing it right around to the Harper's letter again, the Harper's bizarre letter, not bizarre. It all it asked for was that anybody can speak without consequences, and the fact that there are consequences is a positive. I do not find a way around that. That people who are openly transphobic or openly racist or openly just want to say whatever the fuck they want, there's consequences to it, and people actually can say no, please, that, or well, I say please because I'm that way. No, don't do that. That is hurtful. I'm sorry.
Some people say, "Get the fuck off my page."
Yeah, and
which is also valid.
their page, their rules.
Yeah. But we're getting close to a solid 2-hour mark. So
yeah, that's why I wanted to wrap it back.
yeah, no, that's totally fine. Christy, where can people find you? Or is there anything you're working on, and where can people find you?
I'm working on not being sad. Sorry, that was uncalled for.
Well, I mean,
maybe it wasn't.
It's good to work on not being sad. It's good to work towards your happiness and
yes.
well-being. You matter too.
It's true. You do matter, Christy.
Especially for the show, because you really...
you carry the show. Do you think Ozma carries the show?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I'm gonna look. Okay.
I tell these long, involved stories. That's what I
Christy
do
carries the soul of the show. And tells a lot of advice, gives a lot of good advice in terms of who to contact. That being said, I do contact a lot of people and try to deal
It's
with
true.
scheduling
After all,
stuff.
didn't you contact me?
Yeah, I did.
And
so there you go. All of you carry the show in your own special way.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, and Perfict's wonderful to have on. And this was like really last minute.
We weren't able to hear from him this time, but I'm still glad that I got to hear more from the two of you.
Well, yeah, me too. I like having you on. This is.
No, thanks, Christy.
I do. But yeah, I have my channel, Christy Abbey. I'm only doing the interviews right now. The other stuff is put on hold a little bit. I have other projects in the works, but I just don't feel like doing anything right now. Chris Abbey Music is still active, especially now that our local music festival has been put online, and I've done some stuff for that, and which will go live once the festival's over next week. So Chris Abbey Music really still is an ongoing thing. And other than that, I'm on Twitter way too much. Normality, Quake spelled like something I'm not, and an earthquake. One word.
Normal's overrated and honestly a social construct of how that people pressure you into, like, what normal is now was not what normal was 10 years ago.
Normal is dull. Normal is what we make it.
Well, when I signed up for it in 2009, I was still in my angry atheist phase, and Normality Quake was, I'm going to shake up the status quo. I'm going to do it, I'm going to do my thing, and I wound up just writing jokes for the first year.
Own the theists.
And that's about it. Yeah, you can find me there, and we do have a Discord, which we don't use as much. My kid is working on fixing it up so that it's really pretty.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
like the worst at. Unfortunately, I think this was start. Wait, why haven't we asked Perfict for help?
who knows?
Perfict runs a Discord server. He knows a bunch about whatever. Sorry.
Okay.
Would you like to drop your stuff, Ozma?
Yeah, sure. I can be found Ozma in the Dark everywhere except Twitter, which I am talking to nothing. Is my Twitter thing, but I raid in World of Warcraft Classic on Twitch, at Ozma in the Dark on Twitch, on Tuesdays, and I kind of am forced by Twitter rules to sing Les Mis with more swearing, but it's been like a bit of a mess, so I haven't gotten that recorded yet, but I do have to for reaching 700 followers on Twitter. It was actually it was one of those things where I tried to get voting on Les Mis or sing Les Mis or use a swear word every sentence, and like they both tied, and you know, it was, even though it was like not 7 months ago, even though it's like 5 months ago, I do kind of still have to do it. I reached the 700 followers finally, so
You feel obliged.
yeah, and also I like Les Mis, so.
Oh, Les Mis is amazing.
And also,
Anyway.
I have the complete collection with a bunch of the songs. This is from some tapes I used to have. But anyways,
Oh, that's so cute.
thank you. Anyways, where can people find you, Lapis?
Okay, so I am on YouTube. You can find me under the account The Effeminate Degenerate. On Twitter, you can find me at Degenerate Thing, or you can just type up, just my @ is Degenerate Thing, or you can just look up Lapis and you'll probably find me eventually. I really like doing this with all of you. It's been a great conversation. And I'm really happy that you decided to invite me onto your show again.
Yeah.
Oh, I just realized you're that Lapis. Okay. Hi, I've been following you forever, and you've been following me for a while.
How did you not?
What Lapis did you think I was?
I didn't know. That's why I went and looked you up, and it was like, oh, we've been following each other for 1,000 years now.
For 1,000 years.
Hey, I was on Lapis's thing before I was on your thing, Christy. So,
wait, that was when we were talking about ContraPoints, right?
Yep.
I invited you on.
Yep, and then not only for that is when Christy invited me on to the
I don't have a name for my channel.
Yeah, I know. The topic was it was on the Day of Remembrance or whatever, the Trans Day of Remembrance was the topic. Yeah. And that was an interesting conversation. Yeah.
Well, I later, if somebody wants to look at it, I actually later expanded my thoughts on being mixed race and passing white.
Yeah.
It's basically, it says it's called Black, Hispanic, and Passing White. And it was it was done at the beginning of the riots.
So, well, I'm sure we'll all love to check it out.
Yeah, and we can have a good day. Unless you've got something else, Lapis.
No, I have nothing else.
Okay.
Nothing but thank you for having me on, and I've enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yeah, thank you for being on. Like, I've enjoyed that. And I suppose we should have like an out phrase. We probably need that. Then we can say it all the time for
You can use mine if you want.
what's yours
I
again?
certainly don't. Just remember, your voice matters, your life matters, and you matter.
Yeah, that's, you know what? Yeah, let's end it with that. Your voice matters, your life matters, and you matter.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye, everybody.